So we're kicking off this brand new series we're calling Middle Ground. And has anybody seen the YouTube videos before? Yeah, so there's two different sides to things usually, where like one side believes this, one side believes this, and they try to find middle ground or a conversation about something. So that's what we're going to do today. That's what we're going to do for the next couple of weeks, is find middle ground on a few topics. Now, before we go any further in the message, though, I want you to know kind of what to expect over these next 20 minutes. Hopefully, throughout the message, you get some of your questions answered that maybe you stirred up in your groups, and then hopefully this will help you grow in your relationship with God, because that's our goal here, is to help you take your next step, whether that means just coming to church, whether that means growing in your relationship with Him, or maybe being a leader. One of those things is what our purpose here at Student Life is all about. Now, I encourage you over these next 20 minutes, maybe you want to take notes, maybe you want to put your phone away, maybe we're actually going to use your phone, maybe you want to use it to keep yourself focused, maybe you want to move yourself from people so you don't get sucked into conversation or daydreaming, but do whatever you need to do so that you can learn and the other people around you can learn too. Now, like I said, in this series, Middle Ground, what we're doing is we're talking about two different opinions. Like, for example, today we're talking about if God is either active in your life, or you've noticed that God can be active in the world, or inactive. God isn't active in the world. And we're talking about that tension because sometimes it feels like He's not active. Also, we're going to talk about behavior next week, whether there's acceptable behavior to God or acceptable things that we should do. And there's some people that say, you know what? We can do whatever with God. It doesn't even matter. So we're going to talk about what that tension looks like. And then lastly, the last one is we're going to do something on whether or not God has a plan for your life. Some people think that God does have a plan. Some people would say, you know what? Maybe there isn't a specific plan. So we're going to talk about those middle ground topics. Now today specifically, I said we're talking about God and whether or not He is active in the world. Meaning, can you see Him? Can you experience Him? Can you see that He is active today? So before I start, I want to do a survey actually. So pull your phone out. What you can do is go to your browser, go to rccsunday.com, and what you're going to do is you'll see there's an icon that says survey or an online survey. So pull that out on your phone. Your browser, rccsunday.com. All right, and then you should get to an icon where you see survey. Hit that button. And then this should pop up. We have our first question I want to ask you is, do you like pineapple on your pizza? Now, this is actually kind of an important question because I buy a lot of pizzas for Student Life, and I believe fully, yes, it does belong on your pizza. And if, let's say, you're not really into that, I need to know that so I don't order as many of those pizzas. All right, let's come. Whoa. I like that the yes is holding strong. Votes are still coming in. We'll wait a few more. All right, we're going to go to the next question. So it looks like yes. Oh, you guys lost your chance forever. All right, good. Next question. Do you think God is obvious in the world? Do you think God is obvious in the world? Meaning, can you tell that there's a God? Can you tell that God is doing things in the world? Can you see that He's obvious or not? Maybe you're like, I don't think it's that obvious. I can't tell at times. Which one is it for you? All right, so kind of going back and forth. Ooh, all right. So it's a little bit split, about 75-25. All right, next question. Can you tell God is with you every day? You personally, can you tell if God is with you every day? Ooh, so this one's a little bit more split. About 50-50. And then our last one. Is God active in your everyday life? Would you say, for you personally, is God active in your everyday life? Great. So about 25-75. Awesome. We can close that. That'd be great. So for me, when I think about these questions, I would say no for almost all of these at some point in my life, besides the pineapple one. The pineapple one's always been yes. For that first question, do I think God is obvious in the world? I mean, no at times, right? At times I felt that there's too much hurt, there's too much pain, there's too much of my own struggles or inequality that I didn't think God was obvious. Or the next question was, can you tell God is with you every day? I said no. I mean, like sometimes I don't feel him, sometimes I don't see him. Sometimes I don't feel that he's there or sense that he's there. And then lastly, the question was, is God active in my everyday life? And sadly, there were days where I didn't even look to God or think about God or talk to God. So no. How about you? When it really comes to the nitty-gritty, you're not like saying a survey. It's personally what you feel inside. No one else knows this. Have you ever experienced these thoughts or feelings that I've described? Have you like got to a point where you haven't felt God every day, or that you don't feel that he's active? Maybe you aren't sure if there even is a God. Maybe you want to know if God is with you. You're not sure if God even cares or is with you. I think we've all been there at times. We've all experienced this. Even some of the most important people in the Bible that we read about, they dealt with this. There's one person we're going to talk about today. His name is Gideon, and you probably haven't heard of him because his story's kind of weird. All right, so we got to pre-frame it a little bit. Back in biblical times, now think 3,000 years ago. Whoa, that's a long time. Many years ago, God's people, this is before Jesus, this is before even the Bible was written, all that. But back then, there was this guy named Gideon, and he was part of God's nation, the God we follow. All of a sudden, they get conquered and beat by another nation that believes in a different God. Well, all of a sudden, they're getting forced to believe in something else, and they're not even sure if God is there. So Gideon is known to be, this is a weird fact, he's known for his family being the weakest family of that nation. Who would like that? For your family name? By the way, that's the weak family. You don't even want to be a part of them. They're the weak family over there. That's what his family's known as, the weak family of their nation. Well, God shows up to Gideon, and he says, hey, Gideon, I think I want to use you to save your nation, to save your people. Well, Gideon is dude, God, are you even there? You've let our nation become defeated. How do I even trust that you're there? How do I even trust that you're going to use me? This seems so messed up. Why would you pick me, the weakest person? So Gideon asks for a sign, and this is where it gets weird. Gideon asks for a sign from God, because he has this feeling that God said, do this for me. So Gideon's God, I need a sign. I need to know that this is you talking to me. So he does this weird thing. Again, biblical times. He says, God, I'm going to put this piece of fleece. Y'all know what fleece is? A fleece sweatshirt? I'm going to put this piece of fleece on the ground, and if, let's say, when I wake up in the morning, the grass is dry, but the fleece is wet, I'll know that was you. I know, it's kind of weird. But anyways, the night happens, the fleece is wet, the ground is dry, and Gideon's all right, not bad, God, not bad. But I want to do it again. I want to do the opposite. So he's you know what? I'm going to put this piece of fleece, all right? But this time, the ground is wet, fleece is dry. So, again, kind of weird. Night passes, and it happens. So Gideon's all right, God, you know what? You showed me kind of a weird sign, but I believe in you. Now, what happens is God says, all right, Gideon, I'm ready to use you. We're going to use you to lead your nation to battle this other nation. I'm going to use you to lead 32,000 people. That's a lot of people, right? Now, just because he saw this little sign of a little piece of fleece turn either wet or dry, he's you know what? We're going to go and lead this nation to defeat a nation that has 130,000 people. So a little bit bigger. But you know what? So the story keeps going. what happens is Gideon goes. He's walking. He's taking this nation, and they're about to battle. But God's like, you know what? Why don't you send 20,000 home? We only need 10,000. We only need 10,000. So Gideon's like, all right, well, if that's what you say, God. And then all of a sudden God says, you know what? We don't even need that many. Why don't you send the rest home and let's just save 300. So he saves 300 people. 300 people, 132,000. That's a little bit of a difference, right? Imagine that once. Imagine you went from not seeing a sign about God, I'm not sure if you even believe him, and all of a sudden God says, you know what, you're going to beat this nation with 300 people. You'd be like, no way. You're crazy, God. Well, anyways, he goes against this nation. And God says, take a jar, take a torch, and take these horns. So they smash this jar, they take their torch, they blow their horns, and this 130,000 nation runs away and flees, and they win this battle. 300 people beat 130,000. That's crazy. That's crazy. Now, in this story, it's kind of weird, and it's kind of out there. But we see this guy who isn't even sure where he stands with God, whether he believes he's active or not. He has this weird sign that pops up, but he follows it. He continues with God, and then allows God to show him he is active in the world and his life by giving him an even bigger sign by beating this nation with only 300 people. Now, I want to back up for a second. Again, Gideon was this guy who simply wanted a sign from God to see if God is active. I got to ask you once, has that been you before? Are you there now where you're like, God, I just need a sign. I want to know that you're there. I want to know you're active. Or maybe you're in this side and you're like, I don't think you are active, but give me a sign. I'd be open to that. Well, there's a video clip that reminds me a lot of asking for a sign. See if you can see what I mean. Check it out. Now, kind of cheesy, right? But have you ever done that before? You've asked for evidence, and then you're oblivious to all the signs. It says caution ahead. You have all these signs in front of you that says, stop, dead end, don't go any further, caution. And it's like we're not even paying attention. I've been guilty of not paying attention to things before in my life. I have a wife, her name's Sydney, and she'll lead worship for us next week. But Sydney likes to talk. She likes to talk. She's a girl. I don't know. Is that a girl thing? Do girls like to talk? Yes. All right, maybe. All right. General, do we need to do a survey? Girls like to talk, yes or no? No, we won't do a survey. But anyways, she likes to talk, and I'm not a very good listener. So she does some talking, and I kind of have a system down. I used to. I'm working on this. But she'd be talking, and it kind of does one of these, through the ear, out the ear, and I'm just, yep, cool. Well, she started to pick up on this, and then all of a sudden she'd drop random things by the way, I sold your truck. I'd be like, what? Or I did a backflip the other, what? No, you did? No. It just throws me up, and I'm like, whoa. She's like, is that for real? You actually did that? No, I'm just checking to see if you're actually listening. And what she does is she catches me off guard because she says things that cue me in as if that would suck me into something that's happening. And I think we do that with God at times. I feel like God sometimes gives us signs, but we're just missing it because it's not what we're looking for. It's not what we're normally like expecting to hear. It's not what we even maybe want to hear because we're expecting something else. Many of us, we said in that survey that God isn't active in our lives. We don't feel or see him all the time. We don't experience him every day. So the question for today is, can we find middle ground and look for signs from God? Can we find middle ground and look for signs from God? I think when we look for signs, we actually can find God. We can find God. And I think there's 3 questions we can ask ourselves to find and experience God like Gideon did, actually. God, for the first one, is, are you open to even hearing God? Are you even open to hearing God? God can kind of randomly just show up at times, and that's what he did for Gideon. He randomly showed up. I don't know what that looked like for Gideon, whether it was like verbal or whether it was like audible or whether it was like an angel coming down or just even a gut feeling or thought that he had. But for us, many times that's how God speaks to us. Many times it's a feeling inside. It's a thought that you just can't get rid of in your head. It's a desire for something more. It's maybe a voice even. It's this repeating thing inside of you that you just can't let go. If God did that for you, would you be even open to accepting it? If you're feeling that tug even right now, like of God telling you something or telling you to do something, or maybe even just start listening to him, that's probably God. Like, that's probably God saying, I want you to start listening to me. I want a relationship with you. And we can all have that with God. Or Jesus even. You simply just have to say in your head and your heart that, God, I want to be connected to you. I want to follow you in your ways, and I'm not worthy to be your friend. I'm a messed up person, but God, I want to hear from you. Take me. And he will. There's a verse that says this really well, and I'll read it for you because maybe this is the stage you're at. Maybe you just want to start hearing God for the first time. It's in Romans 10:9. It says, if you openly declare that Jesus is Lord and believe in your heart that God raised him from the dead, you will be saved. For it's by believing in your heart that you are made right with God, and it's by openly declaring your faith that you are saved. As the scriptures tell us, anyone who trusts in him will never be disgraced. Jew and Gentiles, we're Gentiles, meaning we're not people that like normally follow God, are the same in this respect. They have the same Lord or God who gives generously to all who call on him. For everyone who calls on the name of the Lord will be saved. That's us. If we say, God, I want to start hearing from you, we will now be connected to God. If you're open to saying that to God, or at least starting a conversation with him, you are now ready for question number 2. Question number 2 to help us see if God is more active, or how we can have him be more active in our lives, is after having God show up, are you going to continue following him? Gideon, he chose to follow what God told him to do. After seeing some little piece of fleece get wet and then dried, again, weird, but a big deal. After he saw that, he went on to lead thousands of people when he felt inside at first he couldn't. If you experience God in a little way, like a piece of fleece or something weird like that, are you willing to continue following him after? Like you felt God tug you to do something for you, or you felt God tug you, or you want him, or he's telling you to do something. Now, do you continue to follow him by making change in your life, or do you do something for him that you just don't want to do? Are you seeing God in the little things? There's a little video clip we're going to watch in a second, and it's kind of showing us that God does show up in a lot of little things that we don't see. Check it out.
Why are you doing anything today? I mean, like, when I read the Bible, I see you do these incredible things, like raising the dead, healing the sick, and feeding the 5,000. Right. Why doesn't that kind of stuff happen today? True. Things are still happening all around you. I'm not seeing it. Like, for example, I'm thirsty and I want some water. Do you have any water for me? Well, of course you don't. See, this is what I'm talking about. It's like you don't even care about me. Drew,
Now, that doesn't mean that every time something lucky or weird like that happens, that's God, but that's how God works in little things. When you realize that God does things like that, do you keep following him? The last question we need to ask to have God be more active in our lives is, are you listening to him in the big or when it starts to get kind of scary? Gideon, he had to go to battle with 300 against thousands. That's scary, right? That's pretty scary. Because when you do those things, when you actually follow through with those things, that's when you get to see amazing action from God. For you, is that big thing for you? I mean, giving up your reputation to be more like Jesus at school. Maybe does that mean serving at church every week, which kind of makes your schedule crazy, but you know it's making a difference because you know that it's helping like a child and you're seeing God be active because you chose to do that. Or maybe does that mean you tell the person you want to grow more? You tell your leader, your youth leader, or maybe tell me or your parent, like, you know what? I want to become someone that really follows Jesus as best I can. Will you help me with that? Well, if you said that, that's a huge commitment. That's a huge commitment. Are you willing to do that? That's kind of scary to commit to that. Does that mean that you have to follow through on being a leader when all of a sudden you feel inside, you know what? I need to have my friends know Jesus or at least grow in their relationship with Jesus. Are you willing to do that scary thing of inviting them and putting yourself out there? Or lastly, does that mean being the Christian in the group when no one else is? When you're with your friends, does that mean you kind of stepping up to the plate and saying, you know what, I don't think this is right. I think this is better for us to do it this way. When you follow through on what you feel God is telling you to do, that's when God becomes active. So as you leave here today, I challenge you to first be open to hearing from God. Meaning, start a relationship with him. Start trying to follow his ways. When you start following his ways, you sit in this corner here on this side, the active side, and you start seeing, you know what, I think God is active. I see that he is active because I'm following his ways and I see results. Maybe for you, you're number 2. You need to continue to follow God in the small things. Look for him in the small things and follow through for him in the small things to see that maybe he is active. You see God show up in the tiniest thing. You see that he's just helped this person. Or all of a sudden you had this gut feeling that you feel is from God to maybe take care of this person that's at school that just is made fun of all the time. But you act on it and it feels amazing. You start seeing that God is active when you do those things. Or lastly is putting your best effort to do the big things God asks you to do or tugs you to do. I don't know what that is for you, but when you step out and do the big thing for God, you start seeing him be active. So I'm going to pray that we do those things, that we are like Gideon and we start doing the small things and then eventually do something really big for God so that we are on this side of seeing God is active. Will you guys pray with me? Hey, God, thank you for everyone that's here tonight. I just pray that as we talk about you being active in our lives, I pray that you help us see that you are active in the world. We found middle ground, and what we need to do is find the signs that you give us, that you are active. So help us see those every day and help us act on those. In your name we pray. Amen.